I'm gonna give you all a little peek behind the curtain before we even get started here. This is my wife's Asus A43E. This thing is an Intel Pentium. I think it's a dual core. It's running Windows 7. It's got all kinds of weird things done to it. And normally, when I do one of these videos where I try an old piece of tech from however long ago in the current year, I try to go in as blind as possible. I set a few goals. I have a general idea of how things are gonna go, but whatever happens in the meantime isn't scripted, it's just what happens. This thing has been a nightmare, and not just because it's a Chinese domestic market one or a Taiwanese domestic market one, so it's got the Mandarin keyboard and all these other things. It's been a nightmare because there are things on this computer that I have not experienced on other machines, which apparently, based on how a lot of computer resellers here work, that's pretty common. Another thing I found weird, or just really funny, was that my wife never took the plastic peels off, treating them like a screen protector, I guess, even though it ruined the quality of the webcam and all this stuff. I made a short peeling off the keyboard and asking why people do that, which of course you already know because you're subscribed. But yeah, this is just weird, and recording has been a nightmare because I'm still getting this space set up and, well, everybody's doing stuff and you can hear all of it because there's no sound deadening. But regardless, let's just go ahead and fire this thing up. I'll show you the first weird thing. We're gonna play around a bit with what's on here and kind of try to do some stuff on it now that it seems to be happy. And then we're gonna put Linux on it. So buckle up, let's go. So the first weird thing is that when I turn it on, you get this little prompt that says F2 in the corner. And if I press it, I get a Windows 98 screen, and then it says something not installed. I get this whole diatribe in Mandarin. And then if I click on this one and I hit DOS and I say yes, I'm just in DOS, literally in DOS. If I put, what is it? I think, filesys, no. I don't remember DOS commands, that's embarrassing. dir, that's what I was looking for, directory, not with a comma, directory, yeah. Just chilling in DOS. And if I hit ghost, I get this, which just, I'm sitting in a Symantec thing, I don't know. It's just, I'm in some kind of file system. I don't know, Symantec Ghost? I don't know, but apparently doing some of these weird installs and alternative things is common in these areas. In fact, one of my in-laws has a PC that's a Hackintosh, which is cool. I love the idea of being able to make a Hackintosh, but he bought it that way. And so I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility that systems like these have, I don't know, other things installed for maybe power users or just upon request. It's really odd. I didn't dive too much into it because I just wanted to get the thing working, which, oh, by the way, if I do this, the battery is cooked in this thing. So yeah, that's extra fun. But yeah, let's go ahead, now that we know the weirdness on running DOS on this thing, let's go ahead and boot up into its main operating system. Still recovering from a cold. Its main operating system, which of course is the legendary, not XP, Windows 7. And of course it's yelling at me because I didn't shut it down properly last time. But let's boot up into Windows 7. It actually boots up surprisingly fast for its age. I mean, Windows 7 wasn't exactly a heavy operating system. It was definitely more optimized than Vista at the beginning, but yeah. To be fair though, Vista did kind of get its redeeming qualities at the end, but Windows 7 just capitalized on it. And I don't know. Helper not installed. This thing has iTunes. Okay, that's kind of funny. All right, so we have Windows 7, and we just have everything that was left over from when my wife last used it, presumably in like 2015. She got this thing back in like, I think 2011 or 2012. But there's some interesting things I noticed while I was kind of playing around with this. Number one, the period key is broken. So if I go in here, it just spams period until I hit backspace. And then if I go to use period, it just it doesn't work. All the other keys work, but period is broken. Even the keys around it work. Another thing that was cool, this thing actually supports multi-touch on this tiny little trackpad. In fact, there's a little icon, and I forgot that Windows did this. I think they did this back in XP as well, when laptops started to really take off as a common use case computer. But, or I guess not really take off, but anyway, down in the corner by your toolbar, you actually have a little icon that shows when you're doing a single input on the trackpad, a multi-touch input on the trackpad, and it even shows, it even shows 3 finger presses. Does it show 4? Nope, just 3. This thing maxes out at 3, and it shows your right and left click, which of course, for this age, are separate buttons. I love it. We also have common amenities on this thing like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. That's not Bluetooth, that's TeamViewer. Bluetooth, which is kind of neat. So this thing was pretty okay for its time. The biggest letdown, of course, is the Pentium, at least by modern standards. This thing is a dual core, dual core. And if the sticker is to be believed, which you can't trust this sticker anymore because you'll see why in a minute, but if it's to be believed, this is a B950 Pentium at 2.1 gigahertz. I mean, I guess for the era, that would have been okay, depending on what she paid for this thing. I don't know what she paid for this. But the reason I say you can't trust the stickers is because if we go and check out the rest of the specs, this thing is supposed to have a 500 gigabyte hard drive and 2 gigabytes of RAM. But you'll see here in a minute that is not the case. If we go into System, we'll see that this thing has 4 gigabytes of RAM. And as for the hard drive, this is where things are a bit weirder. So if we go into our File Explorer, we actually see under my computer, this thing has partitions on one hard drive, which is another thing that I've seen, and I don't understand it. Basically, they put the OS on your C drive with, I guess, enough space for updates, maybe essential tools, essential programs, and then they partition off your hard drive and give you the rest as a D drive for data. I've seen this, especially with old people, where they put D drive as a partition and they just say, this is where all your data goes, don't touch C drive. It's like people never considered folders being a thing, and I don't understand it, and we're gonna rectify that when we put Linux on this thing, which I have my Linux USB right here. We're gonna try Ubuntu because it's a modern enough OS. I should say it's a modern OS that supports old enough hardware that it should be fine, because obviously Windows 7, doing what I'm doing right now and what I'm about to do, is very unwise because the security, well, you know, just like Windows 10, which is an ancient operating system, this is no longer getting security updates, so it is at risk. So there's that. She doesn't really have anything in anything. Like, Power DVD has some default thing that goes to iTunes. Bluetooth folder has a folder called Thumbs. I like that name, Ninja Tuna. That's kind of funny. Movies, what is this? Hopefully not anything copyrighted. Wildlife in HD. It appears to just be wildlife in HD. Can I get info? Really? Really? Spacebar doesn't play and pause, Command P does. I forgot how unintuitive some of the old key commands were. Images, your Windows default. She really didn't do anything on this computer. Okay, this was not as exciting as I had hoped. What might be exciting though is to see how this thing does browsing the modern web, considering that, you know, Windows 7 is not exactly doing that anymore, although there is a surprising number of people who, from everything that I've seen, are still using Windows 7. I mean, to be fair, it is a very small number of people still using Windows 7. I think the last statistic I saw was like 2 to 5% of people are still using Windows 7 in 2025. But I mean, the thing is, Windows 7, in my opinion, was the last OS that Windows ever made that just got out of your way and let you do what you needed to. It was an operating system. It wasn't an ad vehicle. It wasn't a data vehicle. It wasn't any vehicle for trying to sell you more stuff. It was an operating system that you put on your computer to use as a vehicle for productivity and other tools. You wonder why people move to Linux, and this is my little rant for the video. You wonder why people move to Linux, or especially now moving to Mac OS. It's the same reason, similar reason I should say, to the reason why people moved to Windows Vista, from Windows Vista to Mac OS back in the day. Because when Vista came out, it wasn't because of the advertisements. It was because Microsoft, to their credit, were pushing the limits of what Windows really was at the time. We came from XP, which ran on like a 233 megahertz CPU, all the way up to a 3.4 gigahertz Pentium 4. And we are now being asked to run on a 1 gigahertz processor. We're going from needing megabytes of RAM, I think 256, maybe 512 megabytes of RAM, to a gigabyte of RAM. That was a big jump at the time, and people hated it. So they just hopped over to Mac OS. And that's also why the Mac versus PC ad campaigns really took off. Fast forward to now, and you have Windows 11. 10 was also somewhat of an ad vehicle, but now especially, it's an ad vehicle for Windows 11, because with the drop in support for Windows 10, unless you have the long-term support package, you're just looking at an OS that's there to tell you, hey, you can do what you need to, because it's still a good OS, but we're gonna tell you you need to go and buy a new OS because this one's not supported anymore. And so people are looking at their options and they're saying, well, I have this PC, if it's still modern enough, why don't I try Linux? Or they're thinking, well, this is an old PC, but I hate Windows 11 because I don't want Copilot to take a screenshot like a North Korean smartphone every few minutes, or I don't want to be given advertisements for all these apps that are pre-installed on my computer, even though they're not because I gotta pay for them. Well, I just pay extra for a Mac, and Mac OS just gets out of my way and lets me do what I need to. And especially nowadays with a lot of people doing things on web-based platforms instead of program-based platforms, you buy a Mac or you buy a PC and you throw Chrome on it and there's no difference. So anyway, rant over. Now let's go ahead and do what I'll never advise anybody do, which is hop online with this thing. Now that I've made sure that there's no personal information on this computer that could be compromised. And we've got Chrome, and Chrome just works. I'm pretty sure Chrome actually still gets the latest versions on Windows 7. Let me see here. Nope, that was quit. Also, this only has the Mandarin or Chinese traditional language pack on it, which sucks because I can't actually change the language to English. It is stuck on Chinese. So I'm navigating by literally memory and also a little bit of experience just from poking and prodding at this thing for so long to just get it working. You know what? I don't care to check. Let's just do what I would do on any computer to stress it out. Let's do YouTube. Come on. It takes its time, but it gets there in the end. All right, let's check on this guy here. Ooh, that image load time is bad. And I genuinely don't think it's my internet connection, because sometimes the internet connection can cause this, but I don't think that's the case. Can I just, yes, okay, yep, Windows 7 was the one with Snap. I don't remember if Vista had Snap or not, but yeah, all right, I guess we're watching the watch video. Let's go. I muted it and now it doesn't want to unmute. All right, so we're definitely pushing this thing. What is our CPU sitting at? Oh, that is 100% CPU utilization across all 2 cores to try and load a freaking World of Warships ad.
Listen, I've been an Apple user since the beginning. I just stopped wearing it. And today, I want to talk about why and what I replaced it with.
What is this playing back at? HD. What does HD mean?
Even things
I gotta scroll for my resolution. What?
I was getting notifications. I was getting batteries.
This thing's playing back at 1440p in this little window. Wait a minute, wait a minute.
The fact that I was in the process of moving my life.
I mean, it's not happy to do it. What if I bump it down to HD, 1080p? That's actually not bad. I was expecting it to be significantly worse. That is extremely tolerable. And if I make it bigger, like the actions in between are not great. It is very sluggish in between versions, or in between actions. It's very sluggish between actions, but man, that's better than I thought. Let's bump it back up to 1440p, see how it does on full screen. It stutters. It stutters in full screen at 1440. Oh, there it goes. Yep. Yep. What if I let it buffer a little bit? I don't know if it wants to buffer. Nope. So 1440p kind of plays okay in the smaller windows, but not full screen. And even then, it's still sluggish. I just realized too, I said earlier that the date was right, and it absolutely is not. But it's correct enough that we're not having SSL issues, so that's good. I mean, you know what? It's working. Although Adobe isn't happy. All right, you know what? We're blowing this hard drive away. I'm done. This was fun. All right, we're done. I mean, I know that there's not gonna be any way of fixing certain like hardware issues, like the period key or the dead bat. Well, there is a way of fixing the dead battery, which we'll talk about in a minute, but yeah, we're not going any further with this. The Windows 7 was fun. Maybe I'll put Windows 7 or even try Vista on this thing later, but we're gonna just blow this away. So let's shut her down and get ready for a Linux overhaul. Fuck off, Adobe. Even back in the Windows 7 days, Adobe was a pain in the ass. No, I didn't, you know what? It's always nice to have a dead battery just to be able to do that. All right, so while we have it powered down, let's actually take a little tour of the hardware here. So the reason I said that in terms of the battery, there is a way to fix that is that we actually have a completely removable and user serviceable battery. So this thing is obviously dead, very, very dead, but you can buy a replacement for this. I assume you probably still can. This is a 5200 milliamp hour battery. For reference, my iPhone 17 Pro Max has, I believe, like a 5088 milliamp hour battery. So it's only less than 200 milliamp hours shy of a full laptop battery from 2011. That is wild. But alongside the user serviceable battery, there's screws everywhere, just standard Phillips head screws for things like access to the hard drive, which is down here. I presume the RAM down here, which is what was upgraded from 2 gigabytes from factory to 4. And in terms of ports, we of course have our standards, which would be USB 2.0, pretty common for the time. 2 jacks, we've got a headphone in and a microphone out. We have a DVD drive, which is pretty cool. I believe this is a multi-layer drive because it says multi-recorder, which means that it is read and write. And then around front, we have an SD card slot. That is actually super cool, I like that. Then coming around on this side, we have our standard ventilation, which we could hear kind of cranking up when we were watching YouTube earlier. The plug for power, which I hate this on these devices. Even modern laptops do this. Instead of putting the charger back here where like the Kensington lock is, they decide instead to move it like way down here. So you now have a cable sitting in front of the hot ventilation bits, and it's also just in an inconvenient spot, in my opinion. We also have Ethernet, we have VGA, HDMI, and what was apparently, not apparently, I think it was back then, a standout feature for this, which was USB 3.0, which of course they color blue to differentiate from USB 2. But nowadays, unless you buy a really cheap laptop, most USB 3.0 ports are just all black because USB 3.0 is standard. And of course now we have USB-C, which doesn't need color coding because it looks different from everything, but it's also a super confusing standard. I made a short about it. Let's move on. So what we're gonna do is try and boot this thing off of the USB 3.0 port because that would be the fastest option we have for getting this thing to run Linux. We're gonna go ahead and pop it into power, and I believe it is the escape key to get to our boot selector. And escape it is, and there it is. UEFI, USB, let's go. Error, no boot found. Oh, and there we go. All right, try and install Ubuntu. We are going to try and install Ubuntu. I'm gonna be curious once we get this thing booted up if there's like just missing data for that hard drive, because with it being partitioned that way, it doesn't come up to the full 512 gigabytes. It comes up to like under 250. So I'm wondering if they either optioned up the RAM and down the storage, or I don't freaking know. I don't know, maybe if I get really curious, we'll just pop the bottom open and see, because 250, especially with the boot speeds. Actually, I just realized I don't hear or feel any moving components. This thing might have like an old 200 gigabyte SSD. Hey, look at that. All right, so we have our Ubuntu desktop. It probably knows the battery is cacked. Let's take a look. Battery 0%. Does it tell me like service now or anything like that? Let's see. Nope, it just tells me that it's charging at 0%, and it's been that way since we started the video, so yeah, battery's cooked. It is running a bit sluggish. I'm gonna chalk that up to most likely just running off of a USB thumb drive. Even over USB 3, it's probably not really happy to do that. And we're not gonna connect it to the internet yet, though it does look like it knows that it has Wi-Fi, is that right? Okay, the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth hardware both showed up. That's usually a bit of a challenge with Linux, at least in my past experiences, so not bad. Yeah, sure, we'll try install third-party software. Let's see what that does for graphics. I actually don't know what the graphics are on this thing. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, we're looking at old school Intel HD graphics, 3000 for Sandy Bridge architecture. Yeah, we're running integrated. That's gonna be fun, but you know what? It's okay, because we only have to run a 14 inches with bezels that thick. We only have to run a 14-inch 1366 by 768 display. You know what? Look, nobody ever said this thing was pretty. I don't even think anybody said that back in its day, but here we are. Okay, 240 gig ADATA SU650. Let's see what that is. That is, yeah, that is an old, actually still in production, unfortunately. That is a pretty old SSD, and I don't want to require the password login. Let's go. We are in Taiwan. Bam. All right, we are moving-ish. Let's see how far we can go. Hey, it's got the time figured out. So it knows that it's December 9th at 11:49 in the morning. Not bad. Don't know why it's taking so long to figure out how to set the time zone, though. It's moments like these where I wish I could just time-lapse the video. I'm gonna go get my other laptop so I can do some work while this thing does some work. Okay, yeah, I definitely think that something went wrong with this install, or at least with this portion of the install, because it shouldn't be this hard to, yeah, there it is. Let's go back. I'll try again. Oh no, it stopped up on this. But guys, this is the year of the Linux desktop. The year's almost over. We gotta get there.
Much later.
So it's been going for a minute now, and I did finally get it onto an install screen, but, well, let me show you. So it was just sitting here for a while, and I was like, man, it's taking quite a while to do this. So I pulled up the terminal, and you can see that it started a process at 12:03. It is now 12:09. And, oh, Ooh, the moment I started to doubt it, it started moving again. Okay, Linux. All right, I see you. I see you. Honestly, I feel like maybe I am just extremely spoiled by how fast tech has become. Because, yeah, it sat at 1203 for quite a long time, and now it's just going. So, yeah, I'm definitely asking too much out of this this little dual core Pentium processor because it's doing what I ask. It's doing it at 2011 speeds. Sick.
11 minutes later.
All right, and that took way longer than I thought it would. I understand that this is an older machine, but also Linux devs who are not watching this, maybe a loading bar wouldn't go amiss. That little animation thing at the bottom is pretty, but it doesn't give me anything. And I'm not as familiar with what the sort of ending stages of the terminal will be in an install. So if you're aiming for the layman, maybe put an install loading bar so we know. Anyway, let's go ahead and restart. And if it lets me restart, come on. Let's see if this actually, I'm curious now if it got rid of the like F2 and DOS and all that stuff installed, because that was very odd, very not stock. So I'm curious if this did that or not. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I didn't even get an ASUS splash screen. So no splash screen at all. I don't think it completely shut down, so. All right, Ubuntu, welcome, thank you. And apparently there's quite a few updates. So let's see how this performs. Pretty damn good, actually. That's not bad. Let's show the updates. But even while it's doing this, I feel like maybe I'm gonna be able to do a bit while I'm kind of here, I think. Yeah, it definitely is a bit happier to do things while it's running these updates, so that's cool. Although it is eating up a lot of the CPU. RAM though is great. We only have 1.5 gigabytes of our 4 gigabytes of RAM in use right now. Obviously no swap because we haven't done anything that would require swap. While that's downloading, let's go ahead and just for shits and giggles, let's take a look at Firefox. Of course, Firefox runs on anything, but let's go to Google. Yep, that works. And then we do Apple like we did before. I'm gonna wait to do YouTube until the webcam tool's downloaded because I don't need that like freaking out. It is loading a bit longer than we did in Windows. Okay, oh, because it's loading the support page again. I can't read Mandarin, I don't know which one I'm clicking on. Cut me some slack. I'm gonna say images are taking a minute to load, but everything else seems fine. I feel like part of this is probably because you actually have to think about what resources are in use, and cheese here is installing while I'm doing this, so. Oh man, that 83.64 megabytes is just making this thing struggle, isn't it? Ah, okay, it's done. So let's see if YouTube loads correctly. Let's try again. Let's do the watch video again. Same one as we did last time. Man, McDonald's over here in Taiwan is on a whole nother level. I swear, they're on a totally different level than what we've got in the US. Signature. Anyway, let's move on. Well, the volume rocker works way better. All right, so it's definitely loading in at a lower resolution. 720p was its default. Let's go back up to 1080p. Yeah, I mean, the screen itself is garbage. The colors look terrible, but the actual playback speed, it's not bad. Let's try 1440p. Let's really push this. See what we've got here. No way. It's not stuttering like Windows did. It's not stuttering at all like Windows did. I assume this is probably due to more updated drivers or more updated protocols, but like, that's awesome. All right, let's really push it. Oh, okay, no, it does stutter. It still stutters with the in-betweens like we saw before. Let's do 4K. Make her cry here. Because remember, you can watch 4K content on your phone courtesy of dedicated video encoders on the chip. You don't have that here. That's just a still frame. That's also a still frame. The subtitles are still going. It goes to a slideshow. Let's move it back to 1440p. You know what? I'll take 1440p. I'm genuinely impressed that it can even handle 1440p. I was expecting 1080p or less right from the start with Windows, so not bad. How much processor power was actually being used when we did that? I just realized I didn't look at that. Okay, let's bump it down to 1080p and see what it does. Oh, it is in 1080p. Yeah, and at 1080p it uses like 60%, 40%. That is borderline usable. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the webcam and then wrap this up. So our webcam, I don't know the specs on this webcam. I'm assuming it's a potato, but I guess we'll see. It's taking its time to load. Oh, we got a light, and hey, we got a camera. Oh boy. This is a test of the microphone and video quality on this computer. And the video just froze during the recording, so I don't think that this is working. It just straight locked up. Cheese is not responding. Oh no. Oh, that was not a pleasant experience. Let's try it again. This is a proper recording test, and it froze again. Oh gosh, okay, we found our limits. It's good to know our limits. Let's at least try to take a picture. Well, at least we know the webcam works. We don't know if the microphone works, but we know the webcam works. Let's take a photo. Oh. No! All right, with image viewer, let's do it. Open with image viewer. That is one of the pictures of all time. Let's see what we've got quality-wise. 640 by 480. Yikes. So, what did we learn today? Well, first off, we learned that apparently this thing was upgraded at some point in its life to 4 gigabytes of RAM and a 240 gigabyte SSD, which is pretty cool for a 2011 laptop. Second, that even when I did ask my wife what was on this, she didn't really know and said nothing important. And I didn't ask her what she used it for, but obviously she did not use it for much. And third is that, well, Linux can pretty much make anything fairly usable. I would say pretty usable, especially, as I mentioned earlier, in a world where a lot of people just use web browsers as their main means of work. You know, I feel like being able to just hop into Firefox and do the work you need is completely doable still on this machine. Yeah, it's slower. Yeah, it's probably not the best idea, but you throw Ubuntu on this thing like we did here, and you've got yourself a usable, basically Chromebook. I mean, Chromebooks are probably just about as powerful as these things, as this thing specifically, so not bad. And fourth, we learned that the webcam is absolutely diabolically bad. I don't even think a webcam from 2011 on like a premium laptop would have been 640 by 480. I don't know, I'll have to check that. But anyway, yes, the webcam is god-awful. But this has been fun, and this thing, I don't know what I'm gonna do with it now that it's running Linux. It's still basically e-waste, but it's, you know, it's usable again-ish, and maybe I'll use it to play around with old versions of Windows. Like, maybe I'll try to throw Vista on this thing, or throw 7 on it, and play around with that with the English install. So that would be usable for me. But otherwise, that's been fun. I've got some other laptops around here that my in-laws have discarded that I'm gonna probably play around with, so that's gonna be fun. But aside from that, thank you all so much for watching. And if you wanna see me mess around with those other laptops, definitely make sure to subscribe and definitely go check out where these folks checked out, which is the membership for this channel. $3 a month, you get access to a full suite of wallpapers, desktops, and phones, phone friendly and desktop friendly, as well as some other goodies here and there like store discounts as I improve my shop. All kinds of stuff. Go check that out over there. Again, huge shout out to those folks for being members of this channel. And if you have any suggestions on what I could do with this thing, let me know in the comments. But aside from that, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye, Linux. Goodbye, and I'll see you in the next video. Make sure to be there and have a good one.